Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me. You are always most welcome. Well, something different today. I thought we'd talk about the IOM TT and perhaps one of its greatest heroes, although there's been many over the years, of course. I'm not the world's biggest motorbike fan, if I'm honest. I've never actually had a motorbike. I got very close to having one once. Very close actually, and I was literally probably 1 to 2 days away from signing the papers to have a little liquid cooled Yamaha in the early 80s, and then someone I knew very well who had a bike got killed, who lived very near me, and it just put me, and my parents said no, and that was it, you know. And these things happen, unfortunately, don't they, when there's an accident. But anyway, we wanted to talk today about my one and only motorbike model of any substance, anyway, apart from the little one that came with the tank we mentioned a few days ago. And this is the Honda RC166 from Tamiya. An absolutely superb kit. Now, you hear me on this channel moaning a lot about bad kits and bad fit and bad instructions. None of that here today. All you're going to hear today is pretty much gushing praise, because this kit is absolutely superb. So I'll just zoom in a bit. Any of you that are thinking of you want an absolutely classic motorbike kit, this is probably then the one for you. I'm going to bring it a little bit in closer for you, and the box here too. It really is a bit of a star, this kit, and the fit was perfect. It wasn't easy, mind. It wasn't easy. This took me, it was, I think, the second longest build I've ever done. It took me 250 hours of build time, including painting. That includes everything. That includes washing the brushes or cleaning the airbrush. I include the entire modelling time. 250 hours is a lot, though. But we'll zoom in and have a proper close look in a second. And in the meantime, I just want to talk about the IOM TT. And I wanted to talk about it specifically now because it is the IOM TT this week, the 2022 event. Which has been going, I was going to say it's been going very well because they've had fairly decent weather, but there has been, again, sadly, some fatalities. There's been at least 3 that I know of. So my deepest condolences go out to those that have been lost. But it's a real paradox, the TTs. I've been there. I went 10 years ago. My wife and I went to have a week there. Or maybe it was 4 or 5 days. It was like a very long weekend, but really enjoyed it. I thought the people were lovely. I thought the food was great, lots of fish, which I enjoy. But I went around the TT course. Now, we hired a sports car. It was actually, well, sports car's a bit of an exaggeration. It was a smart roadster, convertible, 2-seater. Not fast at all. Anyway, we went round the course and I actually did 4 laps, not all at the same time. I think each day I did a lap. And it's about 37 miles. And this car I was driving just did not have a very big engine and just was pathetic, really. I've got to be honest, it was, especially on the mountain part of the course. Up the hill, it was really struggling a little bit. On the downhill sections, though, because it handled very well, it was quite good fun. So anyway, the point is, I know the course quite well now, and really, it just oozes history and character. But it is, for those of you that don't know much about bike racing or the TT itself, this is just basically an island. They've put in a few straw bales, you know, they've got things like lampposts now that are protected and big trees. They've tried to protect them with cushioning barriers and things like that. But most of it is completely open, you know, there's not barriers all around. Protective barriers cover probably less than 1% of the entire course, in truth. So it's a very, very dangerous race. And they have different races, different categories all week. I think it started last Saturday, it runs until next Saturday. Well, I'll say next Saturday, when you're viewing this it might be just gone, but it's a week in early June and that's the way they always set it up. Now, the nature of the course is you start off and then drop down Bray Hill very fast, not particularly even surface in places, with lots of grids and piles and things. And then I won't talk you around the entire course. Basically, then you drop down to a couple of bridges and you turn right, turn west, I should say. So turn west. Starts off south in Douglas, drops down Bray Hill, turns west towards Peel, and then you race along for about 5-6 miles, and then you turn north, and then you do this very fast section through the trees at a place called Glen Ellen. I missed out a few of the notable places. In fact, the hire car that we had was actually owned by chap called Richard Quayle, or better known as Richard Milky Quayle, who is a famous motorbike rider, racer himself, and he had a horrendous accident. Forgive me if he's watching, I can't remember the exact year now. So we were there, I think it was about 2003, 2004, had a most horrendous accident. He came off this bike and it burst into flames and he was thrown, I think it was at Ballagary, or thereabouts, or as he called it, Ballascary. I have all these nicknames for these places. Anyway, but there's a lot of flicking left and right, and these bikes are right on the edge of adhesion the whole time, up to 200 miles per hour. You know, it's absolutely terrifying. If you ever want to watch a film stroke documentary about it that will really bring home the danger and do it in a very high quality way, you need to see a film called Closer to the Edge, which features Guy Martin, who became very famous through this film, I have to say. And they're all there, you know, Ian Hutchinson and my brain's gone. The famous chap from Morecambe, who's won the TT many, many times. My brain has gone. I can't believe that. I can see his face now. I'll come back to me in a second because I think he deserves a mention. But they're all there, all these riders. This is actually based in 2010. And of course Guy Martin had a most horrendous accident where he came off the bike which exploded, and I think he did his shoulder, I think, and his collarbone maybe, and had a few injuries in his arms and things, but he got away fairly light. Connor Cummins, who is the local rider, who's actually from the Isle of Man, he wasn't so lucky, and he came off right at the top of the mountain course at the Veranda, which is a fast right hand bend, and he came off at about 140, at least between 140 and 160 miles an hour on this right hand, and went straight off, and it drops away the ground. He flew off the bike went that way, he went like a rag doll, he was thrown into the air, bounced into the field where there was sheep, which I think he missed the sheep. He bounced and he just, I think he may have clipped, maybe just with his shoulder, the top of a dry stone wall, but he was so lucky because he could so easily just hit it head on, and his body actually flew over it, and he suffered terrible injuries, and his leg I think was broken, and but he survived. He lived to fight another day. But when you see the accident, it is absolutely horrific, and it's in that film. Well, you can see it separately. So that's 2010 TT, closer to TT 2010, closer to the edge, and it's very, very interesting. And I was never interested in, never have been very interested in motorcycling and racing, but it changed my perception quite a lot, and I really found it drew you in this film, and you started to care about these people a bit more, and then if you're like me, you just see them and think, this is utter madness, what are they thinking of? But the fact that it is so dangerous is part of the attraction, because if you can conquer that, it's like threading the eye of a needle. You know, they're so precise, these guys, and things do go wrong. And one of the fatalities this year, unfortunately, was a guy, I won't go into the details and name people, but it was not his fault. He just had a puncture. He's tired of it, and he had no chance. And this can happen. It's a very, very dangerous place. You know, they come at Ballough Bridge. They come on. You have to jump this bridge, and there's a pub directly opposite the wall of a pub. You know, and they are facing. It's like on a bit of a bend on the bridge, so they're facing the pub wall. And there's been fatalities there. There are some on YouTube, horrendous. But anyway, I'm not trying to knock it. It's not something I would want to do, and I enjoy speed, like a lot of people, but I don't think I would ever contemplate racing in that race. I just think that there just isn't enough protection. And again, I'm not knocking it. I think it's a wonderful spectacle. It's great for the Isle of Man's economy, and it brings in millions, literally, of enthusiasts from all over the world. So, yeah, I think that the people that go and compete there know what they're letting themselves in for. And that's the choice you make, I guess. It's like being a fighter pilot. That's also very dangerous, but you know, guys and girls do it. There's plenty of women fighter pilots now, especially there was in the RAF. I'm not sure about now. It's not very big these days, the RAF, but certainly in the USAF there was a video at Lakenheath of a young lady in one of the F-15 Strike Eagles only last week. Anyway, I'm digressing, but back to the bikes and the TT. So I think first of all talk about the bike. This is the Honda 500cc Honda RD166. Beautiful, beautiful thing. I think we'll have a close look first of all at the bike model, and then I'll talk about sort of after build experiences, and we'll have a look. I've got quite a lot of sprues left because there's a lot of aftermarket from Tamiya parts we use, so we've still got quite a lot of original parts, so we can take a look at them, which will be quite interesting. And I say, I would give this, if I was reviewing this kit now, I'll probably say this again at the end, but it's a 10 out of 10. It is a 10 out of 10. No reservations at all. Except you need to be pretty skilled to do this one, especially with all the additional parts, especially the chain. We'll come to that later. And the spokes. Oh my god. Come to that later. Anyway, let's zoom in on the model and we'll see. Let you have a good look at it. I'll put it on the table, get it rotating a wee bit for you. I'll get it in the right position. That would help, wouldn't it? Now then, that's a little bit too much zoom for you, isn't it, I think? There we are. Now then, what we have got here is, it's a very multifaceted kit. So the additional items included were working shock absorbers. Now whether these are all going to work, because they haven't worked them for quite some time, so I'm a bit reluctant. I don't want to break anything because it's very, very finely engineered and very delicate. But you can see some of the detail here. You've got actual aluminium spokes and wheels, which are built with a jig, which was tricky, to put it mildly. I mean, that was probably the most challenging thing of all the spokes, if I'm honest, to get them aligned correctly. Very, very, very tricky, very fine work. Wasn't like model making for me. I said to my wife, it's like being a watchmaker. I had to use my most powerful magnifiers just to get everything right. And then there's a lot of detail that's going on in here. So I'll just stop it from rotating and I'll just see if I can give you a small demonstration if I can get the light right. Let's just try the different lighting. Here we go. Bit of extra light. Down a bit. So it's not in my eyes. There we go. Now then, if I can move this across, I'd like to just demonstrate to you, if I can. This is not easy. We have a working chain. You see that? Real working chain. Absolutely amazing. There we go. It has a beautiful action to it as well, and it comes with a lubricant. So the chain is made up of PE, photo etch, and you have to cut out every single link, and then you have to insert them on these pins and rollers. It is literally a real chain in miniature. Absolutely gorgeous, that is. Now we also have some working suspension. Not sure how much it's working. It does. Oops, sorry, I can't see my wife. It does go up and down. It's more noticeable at the front, I'd say. If I just bring it around. Again, it's very tricky to be careful with this thing and not damage it. It has to be very, very careful. Yes, you can see it there. You see the action. Sorry, my hands are a little bit in the way. Maybe zoom back a bit might be better. You can see the action of the suspension working there. It's not got a huge amount of movement, but it's very, very nice. And it's just got such detail, you know, it's so finely, beautifully designed. I mean, look at the tops of the shock towers. You see that? It's just zooming a bit more. It's just amazing. You see the instruments, you've got the fuel cap there, and it's still quite, I think it's quite a modern looking bike, this. I think it's, the aero isn't, well, it's not as fancy as the modern bikes, but it does the job. The only thing that dates it really, I think, is the drum brakes. So this is obviously the bike that raced in 1966 and won the Senior TT. But look at the brakes, yeah, no discs. So that does does date it a little tiny bit. Now, I'll get into talking about the build of this a little bit more when we open up the instructions, because that'll make more sense, I think. But look at some of the, again, look at the rear, see the rear drum with the, you see it's cable operated, the rear drum. See that here? Just there. But it's beautiful, isn't it? But you know, look at the fineness of these parts. Look at the fineness of the, even right down to little details like the valve cap. Can you see the tyre valve cap there at the bottom of the wheel? Look at that. That's absolutely superb. Now this is number 16, which is the bike that won the Senior TT in 1966. And I just want to, before I get into the model box, I just want to talk about its rider who won the title as well. It was the championship winning bike of the year. So it won the 500cc I'm quite sure what they called it in this, basically the Superbike Championship. I'm just going to knock these off 6 a bit. There we go. So this was the bike of the year, and it was incredible. But it was piloted by a genius, one of two men from the UK, Englishmen, who many argue is probably the finest motorcycle racer of all time. A lot of people, and I'm not an expert in this field, so I'm only repeating what I've read and heard. People argue, about who was the greatest biker, and they say it was either D'Agostini, who was the most successful of all time, Giacomo D'Agostini, who won many titles. I'm trying to remember the numbers now, and I can't remember them actually. I think was it 9 titles. He was an incredible guy. And of course, there's Ago's Leap, which is named after him at the IOM TT mountain course. I think it's somewhere on Bray Hill, isn't it? It's down the hill. The other one was John Surtees. Now, John Surtees and the rider of this bike had one thing in common. They both had the ability to be very successful on both motorbikes and in Formula 1 cars. Now, Surtees was a bit more successful fractionally, I think. Neither of them became... well, Surtees was world champion, wasn't he? Surtees was world champion. But although he wasn't world champion, the rider of this bike, he was very successful, and he had seconds and thirds, and he really was competitive. And his name was Mike Hailwood. And Mike Hailwood was incredibly successful. He had multiple motorbike titles in the 60s and into the 70s, and then he retired at the end of the 70s, mid-late 70s. And he set up a bike business with a partner, a friend of his, and he was married. In fact, he married a lady who was very attractive. I think her name was Deborah. I got that right. I hope I have. I can see her face. I'm just not doing. And by the way, I've just remembered the motorcyclist I couldn't remember was John McGuinness, of course, from Morecambe. John McGuinness, of course, is the legendary winner of the TT. I think has he got the most wins now? I think he has. I know that Michael Dunlop's up there with him. They sort of vied for that top position, but one of the legends for sure. Anyway, yeah. So coming back to Mike Hailwood, he married this beautiful lady who was an ex-model, and they had 2 lovely kids, David and Michelle. And his story ends rather sadly, I'm afraid, and very ignominiously. Apparently, they lived in Warwickshire. And one Friday night, he's living a fairly quiet, normal life now, and he had a nice new Rover SD1, which is the very sort of futuristic sort of dark shape, very modern looking sort of Rover in the late 70s they brought it out. Quite a nice looking car. The police used to use them in the UK. And him and his 2 kids, David and Michelle, jumped in the car to go get some fish and chips. And they drove off it's about 4 or 5 miles away to the next village or town. And they went and got this fish and chips for supper, came back, and something terrible happened. There was a horrible accident. Apparently, a lorry driver, I think it was like a bypass or a very fast A road, and some lorry driver actually entered what was an exit-only junction illegally and pulled out straight in front of their car. I don't know what speed he was doing, but I'm guessing he was doing about 50 or 60 miles an hour, which would be normal and legal, and unfortunately, the car virtually went under this lorry, and it was a catastrophic accident. And again, I'm now going to get into guessing slightly, but I guess that Mike Hailwood, obviously he was driving, and I think his daughter was sat behind him, and I think his young son, he was slightly younger, I think he was 5, his daughter was 9. I think his son was in the front seat. I think he let him ride in the front, but he was on the left side, and it was the driver's side that took the impact of this horrible accident, and his daughter Michelle was killed instantly, which is awful. And I've seen the photos of the car. It's absolutely just wasted, this car. The roof is gone, it's just collapsed. Oh, it's horrible. And he suffered head injuries, Mike Hailwood, and sadly he died about 2 or 3 days later. And a great legend, of motorcycling and Formula 1 was lost, Many argue he was the greatest bike racer of all time. I wasn't really around to watch him at the time when he was at his peak, so I can't comment really, but that is what people say. Him and Surtees were probably considered 2 of the finest ever. Certainly in the top top 3, top 5 of anybody's, I think whatever nationality you would be, they would be right up there, you know, with Valentino Rossi being that list as well, of course. But so there we go. It's a bit of a sad end to this poor chap. He faced all this danger. And the weirdest thing about the story, though, I've given you a bit of detail about his kill, which is unfortunate, but there's a reason, and the reason is when he first met his wife, I think she was very reluctant to have a relationship with him, simply because he was a motorbike racer, and the attrition rate with these riders was very high then, because the safety was even worse than today, a lot worse. And she was very nervous about it, and he told her that there's no need to be worried, because he'd been to a medium, and this medium has told him that he would be killed by a lorry in a road accident. And this is not a myth, as I understand it. This is fact. And he told her that, and she said, "Oh, okay, then well, that could happen to anybody." And you know, I'm not sure how seriously she took it, but that is the story that was told, and it turned out to be absolutely true. And of course he was only 40 years old when he was killed, so he was quite a young man still, really. Only just past his peak in terms of motorcycle racing. You know, I mean, John McGuinness, how old is he? He's still pretty good. He's not quite his peak now, but doing very well still, and very competent on the bike. You know, still pulls the crowds in. So it's a very sad story, isn't it? But he was considered by many to be one of the greatest, and that's why he's celebrated here. So we've got one of the nicest bikes ever to grace the TT and win it. So let's have a look at the Tamiya model, because I know a lot of the model makers amongst you would be interested in that. So we'll just put that back a bit over there, move it to the side, and let's have a look at this then. So if you look on the side, I'll zoom in here. Look on the side here, this is the detail up parts which are included on this model, this completed model, all of them. We have a rivet set, we have a set that includes the clutch and the fork set, and you've got all the wheels and spokes in alloy real metal, and perhaps most impressive of all is the metal chain set. So all those extras are included in the kit you've just seen before you. So I'm going to pop that out. Kit number is 113 or 14113, and we're going to get out some of these bits and pieces and have a little chat about these, and I will show you the instructions and walk you through what it was like to build this rather impressive kit, it has to be said. Let's pop that over there. Sorry, I need to zoom you out a bit, don't I? Stick that to the side, perhaps. Now then, first of all, we've got all these different sets, so there's all different instructions, so I'm going to show them to you. This is the detail Honda RCC wheel set. And this was probably the trickiest part of the entire build, I think, because you have to thread these spokes through. You have to use an adhesive that holds them in place, because it's like you need 7 hands to do this. You're trying to position everything, and then you've got to get the rim in place, then you've got to use the jig. It's really difficult. It's not, if you've got sausage fingers, just forget this kit. Move along, nothing to see here, because you will go crazy. And then at the end you've got to put these you've got these spoke nipples which have to be placed in through the holes that's in the rim, and shroud. It has to be absolute precision. This is when I mentioned about it being like watchmaking. It really is tricky in the extreme. And you will swear, there will be swearing, and there will be anger, and you'll drop things, and the carpet monster will take things, and you're going to get incredibly frustrated. On the other side, you have to repeat, one's for the front, obviously one's for the back wheel, and the whole thing is repeated. But in the back, you've also got the gear, the gear wheel that's on the brake drum as well. And then finally you've got to put your sort of wheel plate shrouds on, and then the actual tyres go on at the end here. But it ain't easy. It really is challenging. They are so tiny, these parts. You are going to need glasses. If you don't need glasses, you'll need them at the end of this build, I'll tell you. You'll be able to see. Anyway, here is actually quite an important part of it. You have here the actual, that's the jig. So this is the jig for the actual wheel construction itself. And you can still see I've got the tape. The tape is just to hold the wheel in place in the middle. so it doesn't keep moving around when you're trying to work on it. See the tape there, you can see the tape there. So that's the jig, and that's the little template that locks the wheel in place on the top, like a locking ring. So that's quite good, but they've thought it through beautifully. The concept here is, wow, one of the greatest ever. It's quite remarkable, to be honest. Now let's talk about some of the, so you know I'm not exaggerating. Let's talk about some of these components, why it is such a challenge. Here we have, get you zoomed right in here. Here we have the spokes. There's my thumb. And here are the spokes. Okay. They are tiny. Tiny, tiny things. And you've got to thread those through these tiny holes. Then we've got these nipples, which were that go on the end of the spoke, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to successfully show you these because they are absolutely minute. Can you see them here? Yes, they are very, very small, and this is probably the biggest challenge of all. Just actually gripping them with the tweezers. So what I did is I put blue tack on my tweezers, and with the blue tack I was able to find a way to grip them. But they are very, very tiny. I mean, even now I've got my glasses on. These are not the extra magnifier ones. They're over here, and I use the big zoom magnifiers, Optivisor that most of you will use. You're going to need everything. You know, it's like throw everything at it because you're not going to see otherwise. I mean, with my normal eyesight, it'd be impossible, literally 100% impossible to make this model. Even with my current glasses that you see before me, which are great for reading and general use, impossible with them too. Then we have one more thing here. We've got some beautiful chromed rivets that they produced. Now these were nice. I thought these were kind of the icing on the cake. I don't know if we're going to be able to get this. Again, they're so small. I don't know if I can get the camera to zoom in enough. Can you see them in the bag? This little bag here. Chromed rivets. I know there's a lot of reflections. Maybe if we just have a little bit less light, it might help us a little. Yeah, that's better, isn't it? Chrome rivets. Those are like domed rivets. They're very, very nice. And this all goes in together to form this beautiful extra set. So there we go. Now, if I zoom all the way back, I'm going to show you what I jokingly refer to as the chain of pain. Because this is and it's great the way they give you extras as well. They know you're going to lose some of these. They know the carpet monster will take them. But here are, see if we get closer. There, as close as I can get. So these are the chain links that you have to cut out. They're in PE, photo etch. You've got to cut them out one by one, and then you've got to put the pins through, and you've got to put these like one design sort of holds it in place, and one design just has the pin simply sits through it flush. It's very, very time consuming, and it's very, very eye consuming. This was not actually as fiddly, but very, very time consuming and laborious and repetitive. And you can actually see there, sorry, I haven't quite shown you the critical part, which is these ones that lock at the end. If you look where my fingers are, how close can I get? Those are the links that actually like lock links if you make them out. So I can't get any closer without losing focus. At the top, they're like a set of little lock links. Yeah, so it has to be said that this is not something you can do quickly, and I also had to, and you need to do this really. I've seen other people build this and they've just cut it out, stuck it on. Yes, they've got a working chain, but you've got all these like sharp edges, and you need to get a diamond file. I got the Tamiya one especially for it. A diamond file from Tamiya or similar, and polish off to round them off. Do a proper polishing job so that they are truly scale-like. Because I've seen other people's and they look a bit silly when you zoom it in. No, they don't. They don't look so good. You've got these shards of metal and bad edges where you've cut it off the PE fret, and you can still see it, and it doesn't look very pretty, to be honest. So that's not so good. Tell you what I'll do, I'll put that on the other side, it'll be more suitable. Put that on this side. All these tiny spokes, I mean, they're just... I'm going to take one out, because I think you didn't see them so good through the bag. Just one spoke out for you. And that's going to be a challenge in itself, I can tell you. Oh no, we got one? Got one. Okay. So this is the... Again, the zoom will be totally inadequate, but let's just try. One racing motorbike wheel spoke. Yeah? So that's the sort of peened end. Obviously the straight end, it just goes in the hole, you push it through the hole, and then of course ultimately the nipple goes on this end once it's located in the rim. This, yeah, you better have patience, you better have time. It's so hard to actually get it in the frame. You're going to need patience, you're going to need time, you're going to need to wash your mouth out with soap at the end, because this is going to make you, even the most Christian or Muslim, or if you are a Maoist or whatever you are, your religion, you're going to be swearing at the end of this, I guarantee you. It's going to drive you crazy, because they're tiny and challenging, and you need mental strength as well. I think quite a lot of it. The clutch and front fork set, that's the one that's got the nipples in it, isn't it? These could probably all go in one bag in truth, but anyway, we won't worry about that too much. Stick it in like that. So that's the extra sets there. Then we've got that's the metal chain. Ah yes, we've got the actual jig. Now I'm going to show you the instructions on the jig, because I think you'll find this fascinating. So this is going to walk you through how, first of all, you have to construct your jig. And this is how it's done. So you've just seen those little link sections I've just shown you. So this is the jig you construct. Then you've got those sections which I showed you. And then what you do, you put your pins in and you close in basically both sides, you turn it over, and then you have to physically cut them out with your scalpel, craft blade here. And this is where you've got to be very careful and do it really precisely if you can. And you've got to put those open lock links I talked about, I just showed you. There they are. This is very, very high precision stuff. This is not model making, as I said, this is watch making as far as I'm concerned. It's nothing like making a model. It was like building a real motorbike in miniature, really. Absolutely incredible. So you've got these. This is showing you the way that the pins go in, and again they are so fine. These pins, they are tiny, tiny, tiny things. And you've got the rollers. So you've got, it's just like a reel chain. You've got pins, links, and rollers. A reel chain in miniature. Absolutely incredible. And then you've got to bend over using this device. You've got to fix the links into the grooves and make sure that everything is connected. Every single one has to be right. And then at the end you've got this like a protector plate which has got to be made out of PE, and then ultimately you put it in. You've got to thread your chain in. So it's exactly like a real motorbike or bicycle. You've got to thread your wheel in at the end and get it onto the chain and make sure it's all running freely, and then lock it up. And I guarantee you, what did I say, despite what religion you are, if you're a teetotaler, you won't be at the end of this either. You'll be swearing and drinking. And here is the actual jig. I mean, it's not that impressive itself. It's only when you actually get it together and put those sections of PE in that you really start to appreciate the cleverness of it. But it kind of locks all together like so, and you end up with this section in the middle that's got the teeth in, and that's where your chain sits, and that's when you start doing the magic. But it is a very involved process, and if you're not used to, if you like Meccano, it's probably going to be great. You know, you're going to be enjoying yourself, I think, because it's very like that actually. So there we have it. We've got the chain set, we've got the wheel set, we've got the fork set, which I didn't really show you so much of. But the forks were very impressive. Wheel set, chain set. Didn't show you the forks instructions, where are they? Have I lost them? No, we haven't got them yet. We've got so many different versions, front fork set. So many different instructions, it's really confusing. Have we bypassed one? I'm sure we've lost one. Maybe it's in the instructions proper. Got a feeling that I've not quite got there yet. We'll get to it in a second anyway. Don't worry about it now. So, seen that one, seen that one, seen that one. And then here's where you get your little tool set where you've got screwdrivers and wrenches, spanners. Look at this. It's absolutely incredible. Everything's in miniature. It's so beautifully engineered. This is Tamiya at their very, very best. No question. Can you see that? So we've got a screwdriver, we've got a monkey wrench or spanner, as we call it in the UK. You've got a wrench there. It's like a hexagon wrench. And these are real wrenches. And they're all cut from PE, would you believe? It's incredible. Clever. That one isn't. That one's a bit thicker, the monkey wrench spanner. The other two. And there's a lock ring spanner here as well, like you use on bikes and motorbikes. Can you see that? Turn the reflection again. The one that's like a hook shape. Just get it separate. There we go. There, that one. That's a lock ring spanner. Absolutely brilliant. And you got screwdrivers. All provided. All provided. All in the set. Here we've got a couple of spare parts, which are the actual a couple of spares for the clutch plates, which I annealed, which is why they've got that appearance, that burnt appearance. Annealed them because that looks more realistic. So that wasn't easy either. And then we've got a couple of bits of sprue. Now you can see here straight away. Look at the chain. This is the plastic chain. Now that does not hold a candle, does it? To the actual real metal working chain that we've just seen in operation. Nowhere near. And we've got a couple of spare parts here. There's the shockers as well, look, because obviously we've got the working metal shocks. Far better again, superior. And then also, on the same vein, I haven't even taken these out of the bag. These have never been taken from their bag. They're still sealed. Perhaps I should sell it on eBay. This is the actual original wheel set now. Look at the spokes. It's very nicely done, don't get me wrong, but it's not the same, not as fine as those tiny little alloy metal spokes that we've just been looking at. It is fine moulding though, I mean I'm not knocking it. I know that these upgrade sets were very expensive. They really were. So that's your standard spokes on the regular sprue. And it's got the outer rings for the actual wheel ring itself. And I think that is most of these bits. Oh yes, and there's also the little instruction set for these lovely rivets, these domed, chromed rivets, which are really, really nice, it has to be said. But you've got to be careful, you're gonna have to drill into your fairing to put them on. Not easy, don't screw it up, especially when you've got a beautiful paint finish on them. So you've got to be very, very careful indeed. Okay. We will now move on to the main instructions, which will be the final bit, and before we have a last look at the model. Bit of a homage to the TT races and the 1966 TT winning senior TT, and also won the championship. But look at this. This is why I love Tamiya so much. People say, "Are you sponsored by Tamiya? You got a sticker?" No, not sponsored by them. Just like the sticker. But this is why I love them so much. Check this out. This is what some of our other manufacturers need to be doing. Instead of charging £100 for kits and then having instructions which are complete gibberish and nothing more than a basic diagram. Look at this, reference material. So we've actually got there, is that the model or the real thing? That's the real thing, I think. It's so hard to tell, it's such a nice model. It almost doesn't matter, but then we've definitely got the real thing here. Look at these photos. So you've got shots of the side of the sort of crankcase and the engine of the carburetors, side of the engine, main cylinder. You've got your instruments on the top of the forks here, fuel tank, back of the seat, fairing here, and then you've got these, there's the clutch plates I was talking about, the annealed clutch plates. the slightly outdated looking drum brake. As I said, that's the one thing that seems to date it. And finally you've got the, I think that's got the rear or the front. That's the front wheel as well, drum brake. And then you flick it over, it gives you the option of, for this kit, you have an option of Mike the Bike, as they used to call him, the heroic legend of the motorcycle world, Mike Hailwood, or Stuart Graham, who was his teammate. Now Stuart Graham, I live in a part of the world where Stuart Graham used to have a Honda dealership. He sold it now and he's retired. It's now got a different name, sadly, but yeah, for years he had this big Honda dealership, and I met him several times. Very nice guy indeed, as well as a very fast biker. And then inside it just gives you the full description, you know. I think we'll have a quick look at this because it's quite nicely done. It's not very long. It just says Honda was founded in 1946 and in 1954. Soichiro Honda declared that the company would enter the Isle of Man Tourist Trophy race. This TT race dated back to 1907 and featured a 60 km 37 mile course on the island's public roads with a 200 km race distance and a 400 metre elevation change. Speed and reliability both needed to be used to tackle this gruelling course, which was considered the pinnacle of road racing in the world at the time and attracted top manufacturers from all around the world. After his declaration, Honda visited the Isle of Man and felt close to despair upon seeing the scope of the challenge. It's a reality check when you get there, I can tell you that. It's like, you know, it's not going to be easy. He stated that a machine with a 100 brake horsepower per litre power to weight power ratio would have a chance of winning. The West German company NSU was already reaching 150 brake horsepower per litre levels, so their racing department at Honda division worked feverishly, but it wasn't until 1958 that their engine reached the 100 horsepower per litre mark. However, their hard work soon paid off, and Honda entered the Isle of Man TT race for the first time in 1969. Sorry, 59. My glasses playing up there. Though it trailed the European powerhouses such as Italy's MV Augusta, Honda's RC142, a 125cc 4-stroke air-cooled 2-cylinder double overhead cam 4-valve engine, quite advanced, took a respectable 6th place on its debut. In 1960, Honda not only entered the TT race, but also entered the Grand Prix Championship in earnest, racing their bikes in 6 out of the 10 races and finishing 3rd and 2nd in the 125cc and 250cc manufacturers' categories standings respectively. Although victory proved elusive, these results demonstrated that they had narrowed the gap. In 1961, sorry, I just realised this is longer than I thought. Oh, this is just telling you about their history. In 1961, the Spanish Grand Prix, Honda finally got their first class win in the 125cc category. They went on to claim the top 5 places, and the 125 bikes won 9, and the 250 won 10 of the championship, top 10 championship places. Wow! Now this bike, having overtaken its European rivals by this time, Honda found itself with its sights set on the TT and taking aim at fellow manufacturers Suzuki and Yamaha from Japan in 1964. Yamaha's 2-stroke 2-cylinder bike dethroned Honda's 4-cylinder machine, which had held the 250 class crown since 1961. So Honda began development of the more powerful 6-cylinder machine and had a 41.57cc combustion chamber with 4 valves, which are featured in this model. I'll show you in a minute. It powered the RC165 to the Italian Grand Prix in September '64, but it had reliability issues. The bike entered from the start, but an injury to rider Jim Redmond meant the modified 165 achieved 4 wins out of 13 races only, and the title was ceded to Yamaha once again. However, this 2-year slump soon ended when Mike Hailwood joined the Honda team. As a privateer, Hailwood had helped Honda claim its first 250cc class title in '61, after which he rode the MV for MV Augusta for '62, and then claimed 4 straight 500cc class titles. Nicknamed Mike the Bike for his incredible riding skills, he debuted as a Honda rider with an effortless 250cc class victory at the Japanese Grand Prix in 1965. Hailwood, however, was not satisfied and requested modifications to cope with harder riding. His input accelerated the development, and Hailwood rode an improved 3 RC165 to victory in the first 8 races of the 66 season. While the brand new RC166, this bike, was entered for the Isle of Man event in June and the Italian Grand Prix races. Hailwood won every 250cc race, and Honda won their rider and manufacturer championships for the first time since '63, and contributed to the company's amazing feat of capturing the manufacturer's title in all 5 classes from 50cc to 500cc. In 1967, fierce competition between Yamaha and the RD05A and Hailwood's RC166, but Hailwood prevailed and defended both his titles successfully. It's a fitting finale to Honda's GP participation in the 1960s in Japan. Wow. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Right, so enough of the history, let's have a look at this, because this will give you a feel for what it's like to build this amazing kit. I appreciate a lot of you are not maybe biker fans like me, sound the same, but I tell you what, this almost converted me because it's absolutely incredible. Look at this. You have got the actual cylinder heads, all the layers of the cylinder heads and the cooling of the cylinder heads is depicted here. What you can't quite see, I don't think it actually shows it. Does it show it? No, it doesn't. But you actually do see on the parts, it's the angle it's at, you can actually see the combustion chamber with the 4 valves per cylinder. It's actually depicted. It's absolutely amazing. So unfortunately the way that they've shown the diagram, it's just the wrong way up, obviously. Then you're going to build up the whole of the cylinder head. You're going to bring in the main cylinders. Obviously it's a 4-cylinder, isn't it? Yeah, a quite incredible machine. You've got twin double overhead cam, which is incredible on a little bike like this. It's a powerhouse of a racing engine, very highly tuned, highly strung. You're bringing in your cylinder head here into the main, with all your cams on it, obviously. Bringing that onto the main cylinder head, and then you're going to attach that here. And this is where it gets really amazing, this bike, with all the detail. Look at the plug leads. Every individual plug lead is done. You actually attach it to the plugs one by one, which is quite, it's almost sketching over the detail in a way, the actual instructions, because it's very, very detailed. So you are attaching, this is not one piece, this is a lead that you've got to cut to these various lengths, rubber tubing, and then you've got to attach it to all the plug leads, sorry, to the plugs, spark plugs themselves. Here you build up your carburetors, and this kit came with the optional chromed carburetor trumpets, which were really nice. Then you've got to build up your bike frame, which looks absolutely horrendous, but actually went together beautifully, so well engineered. I mean, everything on this model, you know, it was the challenge here was the fiddliness, the tininess, but it wasn't the fit. The fit was brilliant. I was talking about the Francois Verlinden books. There's been some comment from people saying, yeah, well, you know, carry on with that sort of attitude that I was talking about, the fact I didn't want to fight the kit, you know. And one person said that, yeah, we carry on that with just be ready-made kits and then you just do your own painting and weathering. Well, no, that's not right, is it? Because I enjoy the construction, but I don't enjoy fighting it. This is, it feels like zillions of little parts. But it was so enjoyable because they all go together properly and you build it up tiny part by tiny part and you see it building up. It was like building a real engine. If you look at there's a photo montage I've got way back. You just put my name in and put Tamiya RC166, you'll see all these videos. And you can see it building up piece by piece and me putting the spark plug leads on and all that stuff. That's incredible, honestly. If you want a challenge, this is a challenge. It's a real challenge because you have to be patient, you must be precise, you've got to get the paint job really good on this, I'll tell you that now. Especially on the external bodywork. There's lots of challenge here, but it is not a fight. It's a challenge, that's not the same thing. Anyway, rant over. Let's go back to the actual job. So you've got to feed in all these. You're putting in the fuel system here. Fuel pipes going in. You got to then put the engine, now constructed engine, into the actual bike frame, and then you're going to build. Obviously, this is when you're not using the detail up metal set, which is a shame. I would definitely recommend those parts. It's very expensive. This will take the kit to the best part of £200 I think if you buy everything, especially at the moment. But I tell you, it is worth it, and the satisfaction you'll get from it will be incredible. Here you got the rear swinging arm, attaching the rear wheel, and again you've got these little bits of photo etch, and they don't use photo etch injudiciously. They put it in very, very clever places that make it look like the real bike. They're not just thrown in for no particular reason to be thinner parts. They're put in the parts where it would look wrong if it was plastic. So, you know, these ends where you've got the adjusters at the end of the play adjusters at the end of the axle, the holes for the axles, and then you've got all these little screws, and it's all kind of in scale pretty much, you know. And then you've got your rear shocker going in, and then you've got your chain system. Now this is where, if you have the detail upset, this is where the movement all comes in here. Then you've got your exhausts going on here, and again they all go together beautifully, pretty much free of seams. And then you've got all the details and little bits of screws going on, fixing all the exhausts in. You've got your oil pump coolant, oil line going to the oil pump at the bottom from the sump to the oil pump there. Then we get to the handlebars. And these were just so sublimely moulded. The handlebar grips and the brake levers, beautiful moulding here. Some of Tamiya's finest ever work, I think. And then you've got to build up your shockers, and of course this is showing you not using the detail upset, so bear that in mind. There will be more work to do with the detail upset than you see here. So you got your handlebars being constructed. You've got all your brake levers are now on. You put in your instruments or instrument. There's only one really, and then you've got the wheels, which, yeah, I would really go with the detail upset if I were you. You won't regret it, apart from the price. And then you're building up your shocks, which this is the standard ones that don't move, and then you're building up your wheel and your mudguard, etc. And your main axle goes through. There's a big long screw for that. Then you've got to do this is where it gets very precise in terms of your finishing has got to be absolutely perfect, 10 out of 10 quality painting. You don't want to mess up your screen, you don't want to mess up your visor or your fairing. It's all got to be beautifully painted. I got a really good job done on this, I've got to say. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I actually painted I painted a racing car and this, although I wasn't building the car for many months. I think it was about a year later. But I didn't do such a good job on the painting of the racing car, and I don't know why, because I painted them at the same time with the same paint. Strange. Anyway, then you've got these little rivets, which are the domed ones in the case of the detail up parts, and then you've got to finally attach your fairing here. And we're almost done. We've just got to do all the coolant pipes underneath the front of the fairing for the radiator, and you've got your sump guard going in, and these are attached with magnets, which are really clever, I've got to say. Beautifully done. You've got a stand for the bike to sit on. You've got to then finally just attach those last little things like the seat, and you've got the pull handle for the tank cover. You've got the fuel tank feed pipes here. You put those on, and that is the construction done, he says. So in my case, it took about 5 months. Over 5 months, I should say. It didn't take 5 months. It took 250 hours, and it happened over 5 months. So let's finally just have a little look in, a bit of a closer final peep in, and you can see what we got as a final finished product. There we go. How's that? You know, there's some really fine detail here. moving parts. We've got the chassis, the identification plate number here, which is really nice. It's all there, isn't it? It's all there. You've got those beautiful studs, the rivets that are on the back of the seat. Turn it around that way. It's easy, doesn't it? Yeah. Then we've got our moving chain. And as you can see, I was saying about the paint job. The paint job, I got this spot on, which I don't always. They're not always this good, folks, to be fair. Oh, my powered turntable just giving up the ghost. Oh, it seems to have a little bit of a schism going on here. I'm not sure what that's about. There we go. So, zoom back a little bit more. You can appreciate it in the round, as you say. Yeah. It's quite nice, isn't it? There we have it. So that's the Honda RC166 from the IOM TT in 1966. 10 out of 10. No reservations whatsoever, apart from the cost. It's better say it's best part of £200 with all these detail kits, because each one is a separate kit. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 sets. I think the cheapest one is probably the rivet set, and that's still about £20, I think. It's like 20, 30, 30, perhaps I'm exaggerating, but they're about 25 quid each, so it's still, you know, 100 quid plus your kit price, and the kit's about £60, I think. Don't hold me to that though, because the prices have been changing a lot recently. A wonderful kit. I understand a lot of you won't be motorcycle enthusiasts, and I'm not actually. It's the only motorbike kit I have. But so outstanding is it, and you know, there's lots of other people who built this, and everybody says how wonderful it is. So if you want to have something that's truly historic, from a legendary time of motorbike racing, ridden by a legendary rider, that is the one for you. I would have no reservations in totally recommending it. 10 out of 10. Hope you'll give me a 10 out of 10 with a thumbs up. Don't forget to smash that like button. And subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have, you need to just ding the notification bell and give us a like. And as I say, just celebrating the IOM TT, it's been on this week, and I thought it would be something that would be very topical for us to have a look at, and a kit that is, you know, one of the finest you can get your hands on. So if you've got any idea that you might like to have a go at it, you should certainly do it, by all means. Anyway, thanks for watching. Got some more stuff coming up for you in the near future. Please stay tuned, take care of yourselves. Stay well, stay safe, and in the meantime, thanks for watching, and bye for now.